want to drop in on something real quick this morning, because some of y'all don't know the capacity for greed and corruption that you may be experiencing within a church, and how that actually can be really demoralizing, especially as a pastor. It can be terrible. But and this is not like a message just for Christians. Actually, this is a message for anybody who's outside of the Christian faith, specifically because y'all are getting fleeced right now by these CRT, social justice movement churches that are using white guilt against you, and are really advocating you throw money at a problem that it's not your issue. See, like when people talk about some of these social justice issues, what they're doing is they're trying to outline a problem that can't be fixed via legislation, can't be fixed via some sort of education and re-education and all that other crap that they try to do through CRT and the like. It's just not possible, because you don't address it that way. You just look a completely different way. But what's happening is, and this is what's so terrible about this whole critical race theory, Black Lives Matter movement, and how they used it over this past year. What they did is they basically have said that if you're white, you're guilty of something in your past that you obviously did, your parents did, your grandparents did, your mom and daddy did, whatever. Okay, so somebody, if you're white, you are guilty, and when you're guilty, you got a price to pay. And so this is like black churches, white churches, Asian churches, Mexican churches, whatever churches are using this as a platform to get money from a whole crap load of white people who they've made feel guilty for basically what they look like. You got to understand that like there's an entire market for that, and the people who have been really at the forefront, I mean, it's not just one group of people who are black, but you think through like a Jesse Jackson or a what's this dude, Jesse Jackson, or I'm not gonna see his name, Al Sharpton. These dudes have been doing this for years, and they've been getting away with it. And I mean, they're elevated to the point where, I mean, they're getting their own TV shows and stuff like that. And these dudes, I mean, they're corrupt to the bone. I mean, corrupt, okay? But it's all about the money. And this is where I want to get Stephen talk to you about just the average Christian, because there's a lot of small churches out there, even some big ones too, whose sole purpose is to really preach the gospel and to help change people's lives, their spiritual life. But there are also some of those churches out there, big or small, who are using their platform, at their so-called Christian platform, as a means to get money. And I'm not going to sit here and put on blast the churches that I know that are doing that, because believe me, I freaking really want to, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start a worship war on my dang social media platform. But and this is one of the reasons why it's so difficult for people who are outside of faith to even want to go to church. Why some of you have even stopped going to church as well too, because you've seen the corruption within the pulpits. You've seen the corruption from behind the veil. It's what we call as pastors the place that people who are a part of a church don't see, who are the volunteers, who are just the regular average attendee. You don't know about the stuff that goes on behind the veil. Behind the veil, I mean, it's pretty freaking bloody. And you can look up what the tabernacle actually was, as Moses and Aaron were running it out in the wilderness. Like what it actually is bloody in there. It's man, it's disgusting and bloody. So I'm saying this to you because one, there are so-called pastors, so-called Christian pastors who are not Christian, and they're not pastors. They are what you call, like what Vodi Bakum, that YouTube I just posted earlier. They are called false prophets, and these false prophets are willing to do anything to get cash. And being a false prophet isn't just about preaching a false gospel. It also too is about getting people's money and grabbing folks' dinero and stuff like that. There's people out there who really legitimately believe it is their right to get into your pocket. It is their duty to get money from you. And if you are a person of financial means, you got to understand that there's folks out there who are trying to use you. They just want to get your contact information. They want to have a way and an end to get in conversation with you, to make you feel, because they want to feed off of your feelings of guilt for something that you've never done, something that you are not a part of, things that you don't even believe about yourself or your family. And they're willing to use your guilt that you really shouldn't have against you. And you need to know that, because the more that you know about that, the easier it is for you to say no. But understand though, because these people are in a religious profession, they can become very manipulative. And this is what's so terrible, because as a pastor myself, I work bivocational because I love my job, but also to understand what congregations can actually do to pastors and how they can be terrible to pastors. I also understand and know what I also understand to know what church boards, I've seen what church boards are willing to do to pastors as well too. Pastors, I mean, a lot of times these people live, I mean, like in poverty. And there's folks who are Christian cynics, individuals who are the Christian critics, who believe it's their duty to judge what pastors should and should not have. And they will use every means necessary to make a pastor feel a certain way because they might have means. You know, that's first off, that's terrible to do that. And then secondly, though, it's manipulative. But then again, though, like, how do you discern when you got a pastor who's got like a freaking jet airplanes and all that kind of stuff? Like, how do you discern that stuff? And are you a pastor who's willing to actually maybe do a little bit of soul searching about that stuff? I mean, you know, I just don't want to be under that. And I know how dirty church finances can actually be. And I won't even get into what my experience is with that. So I just want to say this to you, that if you're a person of means, understand that you might get guilted by churches for your money. And these people who are doing that, they're not pastors. These are false teachers. They have a false gospel and will make you feel like you giving money will make you right with this ethnic crap, this social justice crap that's being used as a ploy to get money from people. And what's so sad about it is that folks are buying into it. Don't buy into that guilt. Don't buy into white guilt. And I'm going to say this one last thing. For all the stuff that's going to be happening later on, there will be reasons for people who might be white to feel racist tendencies toward folks of color. And I hate using that term, but for Mexicans, blacks, Asians, whatever, that might be using CRT, Black liberation theology to fleece people of means. That is, and believe me, I want to be a bridge in there to help folks get through that, because being burned like that financially by folks who supposedly are about God and about Christ, but in reality they're about the dollar bill, that's a hard thing to get through. And I'm just being real with you. I've been there, done that. It's just hard. And I seriously empathize with you for any anger that you might feel, but you can get through that. But just understand though, okay, you got to learn discernment. If you don't know what discernment actually is, you need to look up biblically, because that whole issue is a spiritual thing. What's being used against you is a spiritual manipulation. And that spiritual manipulation is at its core evil. And you are witnessing and living through a situation where people are using an evil tactic against you. And if you don't want to be used. Nobody wants to get used. So I'm just saying this to you because I want you to understand that there's people out there who are a part of this movement, who believe that there's a market out there to get money from folks who are of means using guilt. And a lot of times it's white guilt. These white business owners, these white corporate owners, these white people who just have means, whatever, they're using white guilt against you. And these folks have a nefarious desire. They just want your money because you are a person on the couch. You want to do good for society, and it's not a bad thing to desire to do that, but understand you're getting used, and your money is going toward things that will end up biting you in the future. Believe me, those folks, they do not care about you. They care about your money. And when they care about your money, they want to use you and will throw you away like the trash that they are, but they'll use their manipulation against you because you've got a heart that really wants to help out society in some sort of way. Just understand that, okay? Watch your back, watch your finances, but understand this. These people are freaking evil. And there's judgment in that in the end for that. You need to pray for these folks because you don't want to be in God's freaking end in that. You being a false teacher, false prophet, and then using folks for monetary gain. That's all in the Old Testament. Those folks had a real hot ending. Just saying.